Is Ron DeSantis sanctimonious? Is he Desanctimonious? Let's dive in. First of all, what does sanctimonious mean? I happen to know for a fact that a lot of people either don't know what sanctimonious means at all or just need a kind of reminder and want to think about whether it can be applied to Ron DeSantis. And I have two pieces of evidence for that. Number one is that sanctimonious was trending on Merriam-Webster when this first came out and when Trump first started using it against DeSantis. Another is that I wrote a piece on my blog about this, and it's probably the most popular thing I've ever written with thousands of hits, hundreds every month or sometimes 100 a day, depending on what's happening in the news cycle. So based on that, I can see that there's some interest, and I think that it does merit a little examination. So first of all, Merriam-Webster defines sanctimonious as to mean, quote, hypocritically pious or devout. And so other publications like the Christian Post looked at the Desanctimonious phenomenon and they said, well, DeSantis is not a religious fanatic and he does not present himself that way. And I agree. I mean, I assume DeSantis is Christian, and I'm sure that he mentions that to the degree that, any politician would, but he's not like Mike Pence where he's trying to specifically make an appeal to the Christian right or anything like that in particular, although he might very well appeal to that group of people. However, sanctimonious these days does not necessarily imply a religious element. It could be instead a moral element, that you come off as self-righteous, or you are showy about your moral virtue. So DeSantis has been so rattled by Trump's name calling that maybe I'm imagining it, but I think he's pronouncing his own last name differently. So let's take a look.
We need the courage to lead and the strength to win. I'm Ron DeSantis, and I'm running for president to lead our great American comeback.
Okay, did you catch that? He's calling himself Ron DeSantis, whereas he used to be Ron DeSantis. He is using a long E vowel sound as opposed to a short E vowel sound, which is how everybody else says it. And furthermore, he seems to be emphasizing the first syllable, I'm Ron DeSantis, whereas everyone else emphasizes the second syllable, Ron DeSantis. So is Ron DeSantis trying to say his own name differently in order to avoid people thinking about Desanctimonious? Because for me, it's not working. I'm just thinking more about it. And I think the question of whether Ron DeSantis is sanctimonious in some way also boils down to the fact that he comes off as a little humorless. And this humorlessness puts DeSantis in danger of coming off as sanctimonious. Now, certainly, those on the left really don't like Ron DeSantis, but even those of us who don't particularly disagree with him. I mean, I listened to Ron DeSantis's Twitter Space announcement, and pretty much, much of what he said to me seemed pretty reasonable, but I still thought it was kind of boring and just not a very compelling presentation. I don't particularly like to listen to him speak, but I mean, I like what he's doing. I'm not against him. I like to think that I'm objective here. But I also want to just be honest that he might be in danger of coming off as sanctimonious given his humorlessness. Is Trump sanctimonious? Trump's the one that is doing the name calling. Can we apply it back at him? I don't think so. And I'll explain why. Now, Trump is, of course, one of the most ridiculed people in the world. And the thing is, you want to ask, is he kind of in on that? Like, is he in on the joke, or are people laughing at him? Or does he also know that he can be a little ridiculous at times, but he himself has a sense of humor. I mean, I'm really leaning towards the latter. I find Trump to be kind of inscrutable as a person, but he does have a sense of humor, obviously, and it doesn't mean everyone appreciates it, but he does. And he also has a sense of humor about himself. And one of the classic examples is when he was giving a speech at the United Nations, and he said something like, I've done more for this country than any other president in history.
Today I stand before the United Nations General Assembly to share the extraordinary progress we've made. In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
And the international audience at the United Nations building, there was some snickering, right? And Trump had kind of paused a minute and he said, well, that's not what I was expecting, but okay. And it was just a funny moment because then the audience at the United Nations was laughing with Trump, okay? So Trump is he does come off as a star, frankly. He's a celebrity and he kind of knows how to capture the moment. He has a sense of timing. He has a sense of social intelligence. If he might lack something in book learning, perhaps he compensates in that way. And, DeSantis doesn't really have that. DeSantis he has his positions, okay? He has his assumptions that he makes. And he pretty much shares the assumptions of the Republican Party. And he just takes those and plows ahead in a very direct manner and kind of steamrolls anyone who, whether it's a reporter or anyone else, just steamrolls ahead of them. So it's not like he's certainly not weak, and he is confident, but he's a little rigid. And so that is why Ron DeSantis is arguably in danger of coming off as sanctimonious. And I think that's why, as usual, Trump really kind of nailed it with this moniker. You had Crooked Hillary. That was pretty devastating. He never really had a good one with Biden. And look what happened. But with DeSantis, I think he's onto something. So, thanks for watching this video about Ron Desanctimonious. My name is Michael McCara. I have some links in the description for social media. I would like you to read the piece I wrote on this too, which I mentioned earlier. And finally, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much.